This next conversation is with Mr. Dave Horrocks, who is definitely a podcaster's podcaster. Much like myself, Dave hosts several podcasts with his co-host Chris Phelps, including Comics in Motion, where they break down films and series based on comic books, and The VHS Strikes Back, where they talk about movies from the VHS era. Both fantastic podcasts. Those guys never stop putting out content. It seems like they must be recording every day of the week, and I seriously admire the hustle. With Dave's extensive comic book background, I thought he would be a perfect person to call up and discuss the brand new trailer for the animated anthology series, What If?
I've got Mr. Dave Horrocks on the line, and we're trying something new, recording with some new technology, so hopefully all goes well. But how's it going, Dave?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm all good. Cheers, mate. I'm sort of a little bit behind on my Christmas shopping, if I'm honest. But apart from that, looking forward to some time off work. What about yourself?
Yeah, same here. We've got. It seems like Christmas is coming sooner this year. Is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not as if we've been sat at home and loads of time to prepare, is it?
I know. This is So today we're going to talk about the What If trailer. Did you get a chance to watch it?
Yeah. So it looks pretty tasty, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'm actually, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on specifically is because I know that you are a comic book guy. You've got that comic book background, and so you might be more versed in some of what's going on in this trailer than some other people that I might have on. So what did you think from what you saw from this trailer? Do you see anything from the comic storylines? Were you a reader of the What If comics?
So I've read a few of the What Ifs. It's not one of my favorite go-to series, but I mean, whenever I read a story, I always enjoyed it. But usually it's because I was seeking out a particular story rather than start issue one and then go on from that. I do actually own that. I think the very first issue is What If Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four, because when he got his powers and everything, he went to see them, and then they kind of sent him on his way because he wanted to get paid.
Right.
But, and I think I read one as well about what if Wolverine actually took down the Hulk. And usually with these stories, it ends up with some dark, sinister twist. Someone dies or the outcome ends up a lot worse than what it did in the actual continuity. And so I don't know if they're going to do something like this with the series, but it looks like what they're doing is, rather than taking particular stories from the comics, they're taking that whole concept and then just applying it to the MCU movies.
Yeah. I think I was watching something with Kevin Feige where he was talking about, this slate of upcoming shows and movies. And he did mention that. He said that it would put a spin on what we've seen in the MCU. So it's almost like, the movies and the series are the comic book. They are the world that they're playing with. So it's going to be spins on what we've already seen, not necessarily stories from the comics. So
yeah, I mean, the being a Brit, the one that jumps out at me is it looks like Peggy Carter is essentially going to be the one who takes the super soldier serum instead of Steve Rogers, and then she's going to become. I don't know if they're actually going to call her Captain Britain, or I've heard Captain Carter mentioned. It's not much of a alter ego, is it? If you're using his already surname. But yeah, the design on that looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, I don't. You probably do know, don't you, from the Uncanny X-Cast, if anything. But obviously, there is a Captain Britain, but he's nothing like Steve Rogers. He got his powers from Merlin and what have you, and it's a bit of an obscure one that I'm not sure will ever make it to live screen. So this is probably about as good as we're going to get for Captain Britain, I think.
I mean, you never know. We're getting Moon Knight. We're getting all kinds of stuff that I didn't imagine us getting. So you never know. There could be a Captain Britain series down the line. But yeah, I think I was going to ask that. I was like, would they call her Captain Britain, because she's nothing like the Captain Britain character. She's just basically a British version of the Captain America character. So I don't know. I saw the Union Jack shield, and I was like, I don't know, what do they call her? Captain Britain?
I think they will go with it. I mean, obviously you've got Brian Braddock. He's the original Captain Britain, and then obviously Psylocke took that mantle for a little bit. But I think it's probably the simplest answer, even though it's nothing like the comics. I think they might go with that, like I say, because I don't think they're going to draw too much on the comics, and they're just going to literally look at that, look at the movies. And I think I've seen I think they're going to start off with the Captain America, Captain Britain episode, even though kind of 2008 Iron Man, if they're going to follow the movies, you would start it with Iron Man, wouldn't you? But I think they're going to start it with the Captain America one.
Yeah, it looks that way. What else? Because I saw some other storylines in there, kind of mixed in, and it's hard to tell what's what at this point because it's just really short clips. But I saw a zombie Captain America clip. Like, what was that about? I thought that was maybe steeped in comics.
Yeah, so there was a series called Marvel Zombies. And I think that was a nickname back in the day for people who just only read Marvel comics. They used to call geeks Marvel Zombies. But they did do a series. And honestly, if you've not read it, I would highly recommend it. It is incredibly dark. So essentially, you end up with, in the comics, you end up with the heroes. They end up one by one becoming infected. Excuse me. And, because they're the most powerful beings on the planet, they end up eating all the humans. And the twist from a normal Marvel movie is a sort of Marvel zombie movie is once they've eaten, they kind of get some of their humanity back. And the hungrier they get, the more zombie-like they become, and they need to feed. But once they've fed, they have that kind of remorse.
Right.
And at the end of the first, the first series, they end up basically eating everyone. So they have to jump into a parallel dimension to, find more to eat. And so I think they're going to do something like that with, obviously it looks like Captain America's a Marvel zombie there, doesn't he? So the Steve Rogers one. So I don't know if these episodes are going to be connected to each other or it's going to be like Black Mirror type thing. It's going to be an anthology series where it goes to the next movie and then it goes to the next episode and then the previous one's forgot.
Yeah, I think that is because that is how the comic books were. Mm-hmm. It was an anthology. It was like each world was separate from each world. It wasn't, it was like the multiverse of what could happen. Yeah. And this looks kind of like, it looks like Tales from the Crypt with like the Watcher as the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah. Well, I think the Watcher.
Did you know?
Yeah, I think the Watcher is quite often in the comics, isn't he? And the What If comics, and says something at the end about how dark things have turned out. But so I think the Watcher will be in there. Obviously, he's there in the trailer, isn't he? I did notice that T'Challa is taking the place of Peter Quill, isn't he? By the looks of it.
Oh yeah, see, that's something I wanted to ask you about because I saw that clip and I was like, okay, so we've got what's his name, Yondu?
Yep.
He's arriving on Earth, but he's approaching a young T'Challa. And I was like, what's going on here? So yeah, okay, I get that. Like maybe he's like, what if T'Challa became Star-Lord?
Yeah, and I don't think. I mean, it might be in a What If somewhere, but I don't know if they're drawing off something from the outside world here. So I didn't realize this until I started digging into it. But Chadwick Boseman auditioned for the part of Drax. And so
Oh,
it was through kind of that audition process. They probably, thought to call him one of the first people when they were looking for a Black Panther, looking for a
yeah, that's
T'Challa.
interesting.
So I don't know if they're more influenced by the kind of real life stuff as opposed to, anything specifically from the comics.
Yeah, who knows? That would give you a lot of ideas if you were in the process of making films and TV and you saw all these different actors playing different characters or auditioning for different characters. I imagine that'd be a great place to draw storylines from. Like if you're doing something crazy like this, like a multiverse.
Yeah. No, it looks really good, doesn't it? I think, again, because you think, well, okay, what happens to Peter Quill then? And going back to Peggy Carter. So if Peggy Carter takes the put my teeth back in, the super soldier serum, if she's taking that, then what happens to Steve Rogers? And it does look like Steve's around, and we see him. He's in like a World War II type Iron Man suit, like a Mark I Iron Man suit. So I think Tony's dad, whose name escapes me, Howard, I think he's probably going to end up building Steve that suit, and that'll be how he'll continue. But no, I must admit, when this series was first announced, I thought, what's the point in that? Because I was thinking that it would be just mirroring what's in the comics. And I was thinking, oh, well, like I say, I quite like when Wolverine takes down Hulk, you could potentially explore that, and, that'd kind of look okay. But the fact that they're going to mirror it to the MCU is so simply brilliant, I think. When it's obvious, when it became obvious that's what they're doing, I'm thinking, well, yeah, of course. Why wouldn't they do that?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Like, because the MCU, it's like a world of its own. You notice they'll do similar to comic storylines, but it's not exact. And it's definitely its own world. Almost like, there's different Marvel universes we know of. There's like a Marvel 616 universe. There's different universes, and the MCU is its own kind of entity.
Yeah, and like I say, I think they're going to do, 21 movies? So each movie will have its own kind of what if. So I'm very interested, what's going to happen with Endgame in particular. What's the last one going to look like? It did cross my mind. You mentioned about the Steve Rogers zombie, whether, there's something of an Infinity Stone issue there or something. Maybe Thanos makes a snap, and instead of dusting half of the universe, it opens up a portal to Marvel Zombies world or something like that.
Right. Okay, so it sounds like you have actually read a little bit of other background than I have on this. So did you read somewhere that there was going to be that many episodes? Or
yeah, but
or maybe they're going to break it up into seasons. Like maybe the first season only have 10 episodes. I don't know.
Yeah. So, just looking at it here, it looks like the first season will be 10 episodes, and then they'll have a second season of 10 episodes as well, which is the plan now. In 2020, most plans have gone out the window, haven't they? But I believe that's what the plan is, and so these will come out around kind of summertime next year, and I would imagine with it being animated, it's gonna be easier to rather than putting a big movie together. I know people still have to go to the recording studios and what have you, but you would have thought it would have been less disrupted by a big movie where you have to get hundreds of crew on set and extras in and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, for sure. Like nowadays, you can do most of that, especially with animation, from home. I mean, you could get the whatever you need the recording technology, all the art, all the cartooning itself. It can all be done remotely. So I imagine that would be easier to put together than a live action series, like way easier.
And I must admit, I mean, obviously you're going to be covering all the different things that have been announced in the slate, but I must admit, I've had so in the UK, Disney Plus only came out this March, so we haven't had it quite as long as
Yeah.
it's been available in the US. But I signed up to it, and it's great to go back and watch the movies. Mandalorian is probably the one bit of new content that's been good, but I've been left wondering a little bit, like, well, with Netflix, I get loads and loads of things that I want to watch. This is, seems a little bit flat, whereas with announcing this new slate, with the Marvel stuff, and unexpected with the amount of new Star Wars content that's coming out as well. And they've got this, I think they're calling it, is it Disney Star? The kind of R-rated stuff is going to start coming on there as well. So,
I heard
pretty
about that.
exciting, to be honest.
Yeah, it's definitely a reason to they're keeping me on board for sure, like announcing all this stuff. And now with everything being pushed back so much from 2020 to 2021, it sounds like a lot of it's going to be crammed right together, so we won't have to wait a long time in between each series because they got to make up for that lost time.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think probably Warner Brothers broke the seal as much as anyone, haven't they? With announcing that Wonder Woman's going to come out. I think it's within the next week here in the UK. And I think that, by saying it's going to be available in the cinemas, but on streaming at the same time on HBO Max as well. And then all of the movies that they're going to release next year are going to be available on streaming at the same time as releasing to the cinemas. So I do think, we're just going to see a change. And I think we're going to see Disney just investing hugely in the new content for their streaming service.
I do too. I think you're right on right there, and I hope we don't lose. I mean, we're losing theaters here. We have a major theater here in Columbus shut down. I mean, it's like one of those big 30 theater complexes, and it's now closed forever, and it's just sad to see. And I hope that we still will always have the ability to go to theaters and see movies on a giant screen in that way. But it's kind of been going this way for a while. I mean, streaming is where everything's heading.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think I mentioned Endgame, which I know people have different opinions. And I know one of my friends was like, "Oh, well, I've missed a few movies from the MCU, and I didn't have a clue what was going on. I didn't get all the references and stuff." But for us fans who've been there since, the 2008 Iron Man, it was such a payoff. And, I can't imagine, I've got a 65-inch TV at home, decent surround sound. So I'm happy watching movies on here. But for something like Endgame, to watch that for the first time at home, it just wouldn't have been the same. So I do hope they still exist. I guess the thing that makes me slightly hopeful is obviously the vaccines are coming out, and we should see that kind of accelerate through next year. I still think next year is going to be pretty tough. But when everywhere starts opening up again and people are confident to actually go out, because that's the other thing as well, isn't it? With, just the confidence to go out to the cinema. I think people will start to come back. And you mentioned about the cinema closing down. What are they? Unless they actually knock down the building, it's still got the screens and the seats. It's made out to be a cinema, isn't it? So even if the company goes under, I'm optimistic that some investors will come along and say, "Oh, well, we'll rent that building and we'll start showing movies there."
Yeah, I could see something like that happening. A whole new, there could be a whole new generation of new theater companies around the bend because of this. Like, a lot of companies might go under, and a lot of brand new startups might say, "Hey, we're the so-and-so theaters, and we're going to take over these buildings." So who knows?
I do think, there's got to be something else, because, people like us, people who enjoy that cinema experience, I think we're probably getting older now, aren't we? I'm not sure that the younger generation still really want to go to the cinema, or are they happy, sitting at home watching a movie at home so they can still play about on their phone and stuff? I think that's what they're competing for.
Yeah, I've thought about that, and I just always come back to look at how many people rush to the theaters to see these movies, just last year. Like, look at how much money Endgame made. People still want to do that. Now, there's an argument like, is it that they just don't want to wait the extra 3 months to see it on video, see it on streaming, or do they really want to see it? I think I'm hopeful at least that there's something about the experience still, even for the younger generation, that they want to see it on the big screen.
Did you used to enjoy on a Friday night going to Blockbusters, having a peruse around, looking at all the movies and...
Yeah, of course.
Because I used to love it. I used to work there for a number of years when I was getting through college, and and then even after when I'd finished, you like going around, you like selecting the video. That's half of the night, isn't it? It's choosing something to watch.
Yeah.
So I used to love that, and I really do miss that experience. But I just think convenience wins out in the end, and so and the fact these things don't exist anymore. or there's one, isn't there? There's one in the US somewhere, I seem to remember. But...
Yes. Yeah. I see your point. Yep. I do see, like, it did seem like when there was video rentals, and that is what you did to watch things, it didn't seem like there was anything else. Like, there wasn't anything else. There was no other option. So who knows? Like, something comes along and it changes everything. And streaming might just do that. It might just do that for theaters. I hope not. Or I hope there's at least some old art houses, that stay open for the old people like myself. And I'll be able to go see it on the big screen. But maybe there won't be theater chains nationwide like there. Maybe it'll go the way of the drive-in theater.
Maybe. And I still think, next year, like I say, is going to be tough. 2022, I think you'll see people going back into the cinemas, and again, we're not quite that old, are we, that we're going to be expiring anytime soon. So I think the cinema industry will probably be okay. Once it gets over this bump for the next 10 years. I think it's beyond that where I'm thinking they maybe have to do something a bit different to encourage people to come in. Don't know what that is. If I did, I'd probably be making a lot of money. But I think that's what they've got to do in order to make it viable. And I also think the filmmakers as well, it's going to be really interesting what happens with budgets. I think since the writers' strike in, was it 2007-ish, 2008? Since then, Hollywood has really been devoid of really groundbreaking ideas, hasn't it? You see a lot less original movies, you see a lot more reboots, lots and lots of comic book movies and stuff, and you don't see that diversity, and you don't see as many low-budget movies being particularly successful on the big screen. So budgets have just got bigger and bigger and bigger, haven't they? I think Endgame's at something like 350, 400 million or something to make. So, and they're confident they can do that because they think, right, we'll pull in a billion from the box office. Whereas now, if you're a producer, would you be confident? Look at Tenet. I think that just about made some money, didn't it? But probably a lot less than expectations. So I hope this kind of horrible event that we're kind of going through will spark a bit of a creative streak as well, because people will be thinking, okay, we need to do something a bit more original. We can't just throw massive special effects at everything, and we'll make some cool little independent movies potentially.
Yeah, I'd love to see that happen. I think, tell you what, let's wrap this thing up. I think that that's a good message to go out on, man. A little bit of hope for some creativity coming in the future. And Dave, thank you for coming on and talking about What If, and for talking with me about all this other stuff about movie theaters and how things are going to be in the future.
No, it's really
I
good to
enjoyed
catch
it.
up, Brett. And went off on a little bit of a tangent there, didn't we? So, yep, definitely go out and catch What If when it comes out in the summer, and I'm sure we'll be talking again about it.
Yeah, and I've let everyone know about the Comics in Motion podcast and the VHS Strikes Back. So hopefully we'll send some listeners over there, and they can enjoy it as much as I do. So thanks for coming on, Dave, and I'll talk to you again soon, either on your podcast or another
good.
one
Catch
of
you
mine.
later, mate. Bye now.
All right, what I do on this channel is every day I pick a random topic, something that I'm interested in. It's usually entertainment or pop culture related, but it can be about anything. Sometimes it's just random thoughts that I have. Sometimes it's ridiculous stories from my past. But every day I try to put something out, some sort of content. I'm not perfect, but most days I'm putting out some content. So if you can vibe with that, if that's something that you would like to get something new in your feed every day, a random topic, then please subscribe to the YouTube channel or favorite or follow the podcast. And if you decide to stick around, if you decide to favorite or follow the podcast or subscribe to the YouTube channel, then I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Thanks.